I see this topic come up time and time again. Someone's got a bunch of old records. They're tired of them sitting around, taking up space. They don't own a turntable anymore, and they just want to get rid of them. They don't want to throw them in the trash. They're not sure how to go about it. I'm going to tell you exactly why anyone would ever sell their vinyl collection to a record store on this episode, Talking About Records. My name is G.I. Sanders from NTX Vinyl, a small chain of independent record stores in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. If you're not local, but you are in the U.S., you can shop online anytime at ntxvinyl.com for any new, pre-order, and reissued records. Obviously, if you are local to the area, you can visit our physical locations, and would love it if you subscribe here on our YouTube channel and follow us across social media at NTX Vinyl is the handle on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Let's talk about a topic that I see come up quite often. Typically, someone has some old records. They're moving, they're downsizing, someone in their family passed away, and they don't know what to do with them. So they go online, they either go to Google or they go to Facebook. Those are the two most common places that people search. And a lot of times they'll find Facebook, they'll find a group on Facebook having to do with vinyl records. There are tons of them. And they'll go in this group and they'll ask and they say, hey, I got a bunch of records. What's the best way to sell them? Most of the time, collectors just like you and me will chime in and say, hey, well, let us see what you have. I'd love to check it out. That's the first answer, which I totally get that. Second answer is like, look it up on Discogs. You can sell it there. Maybe you can go to eBay. You can sell it there. There's lots of places that you can sell records, right? The reality is most people have no idea how to do that. And even beyond that, they don't have the time and they don't have the knowledge and the expertise to go down that path. Now, if they do, that's the best place, that's the best way to go about it. Because if you're someone who has some records to sell and you want to make the most money possible, which, we all do, then selling them individually on a platform like Discogs or eBay or even Facebook is going to maximize your profit. But again, if you don't have that time, or you don't, have the energy, you don't have the proactive nature in you to really learn about this hobby and figure out how it works so that you can make that money, well, the next best way is to call a record store. That's the reality of this situation. Most people do not have the time to deal with a box of records or mini boxes or even a room of records, right? So the number one reason, and maybe the primary reason, the only reason that people sell to record stores is because it's fast, it's easy, and it's safe, right? It's fast because in most cases, a record store will come to you, take it off your hands. What's easier than that? You didn't have to lift it. You didn't have to sort it. You didn't have to even look through it, right? And then, of course, it's safe because it's a legitimate business, right? So it's a little different when you're running a bunch of strangers through your house trying to sell some stuff versus calling a business, making an appointment with them. You could take it to them if it's not too many, or they can come to you. It's one of two ways typically. So, fast, easy, and safe, like that's what it's all about here, right? Most people, when they've got some records to sell, they need to get rid of them. I'm not talking about someone who's a collector who's looking to, continue in this hobby. I'm talking about someone who's like one and done. They've got a collection, they need to get rid of it. Like they want it done all at once. In most cases, they don't want someone coming into their home and saying, oh, I'll take the 3 Led Zeppelins and the 3 Pink Floyds, but the rest of them I don't need. Some people are fine with that. Most people don't want anything to do with that because it will take a very long time. Even if they've just got, let's say, a couple hundred records, like the amount of people to come through to cherry pick through them, and then they're going to be left with the most common stuff that they still don't know what to deal with. Like that creates more of an issue than anything, and it takes up a lot of time. So I tell people this all the time, and I try to chime in when I see it asked in these groups, is it really comes down to this. What do you value more? Time or money? That's all this has to do with. If you value your time more, then call a record store, because they'll make it fast, they'll make it easy, and it's completely safe. If you value money more and you want to maximize the amount of profit you can make off of these collectibles based on their value, well, then you've got to spend your time. You've got to spend your time learning what you have. You got to identify not only what the artist and the album is, but what the pressing is. You got to learn how to grade records on some level, because condition is everything in this hobby, just like most collectible hobbies. And then you've got to also figure out how to price it based on that condition. Then you got to figure out where to sell it. Do you know how to use Discogs or eBay? Do you know how to properly sell in Facebook groups or wherever it may be, or on Craigslist for that matter? There's a lot of different places you can sell stuff. And so all of that time it's going to take you to learn all of that, to do it properly, that's going to eat into your profit. The reality is most people don't want to take that time. Some people are gung-ho and they're like, hey, I'll go through and I'll make a huge list of all the artists, and I'll look at all the records and try and figure out like if they have scratches on them. And to some people that will suffice, but in a lot of cases, most buyers these days of vinyl, like, they want to buy from a trusted seller who knows what they're doing, who knows what they have, and knows how to grade a record, and knows how to properly price a record, knows how to properly ship a record. That's another big one, right? Especially if you're going onto a Facebook group and you're saying, hey, I got a bunch of records, I need to get rid of them. Like, most people are not going to be from your local area. You can go on to kind of a localized Facebook group, but then you're not going to get a lot of people who collect records. And so, again, it comes down to how much investigative work you want to do as a seller, if you're the person who needs to get rid of this stuff, and how much you want to invest from a time perspective. It's really what this comes down to. If you want it to be easy, you want it to be fast, call a record store. They'll come to you, or you can take it to them. They'll assess what you have, and they'll, in most cases, I hope, offer you a reasonable amount of money based on the value and the condition of what you have. Now, obviously, you're looking at me going, oh, this guy just wants to buy a bunch of records. He owns a record shop, so he's doing this video. Well, sure, I would love to buy records from anyone. I really only buy local, and most of the people who watch YouTube videos aren't local, so it's not like there's people coming from me all over the nation or the world and selling me records. That's not really how this works. They're heavy. They cost a lot. It's hard to deal with them unless you're actually holding them and can evaluate them in person, which is why you do it locally in most of the cases. But so again, why would anyone sell to a record store? Like, time versus money. That's really what it comes down to. So it's a pretty easy conversation to have with most people, and most people understand that. But every now and then I'll get into these situations where someone will say, well, I've got a bunch of records here, and I was in maybe not my local record store, but maybe like a thrift store or like a half price books, which those are big down here. And I saw they had records priced for $10, $15, $20. So, well, why would I sell these to you for, $1 or $2 or $3 a piece? Well, because that record store or that thrift store or wherever it may be, they've got them priced at retail. You are not a retailer. You are an individual. And as a record store owner, I can tell you, and I speak for all record store owners here, we buy wholesale. So if you've got a record that, let's say, retails for $10, I'm not going to pay you $10 for it. I'm not going to pay you $9 or $8 or $7 or $6 or $5. Like, I'm going to pay you $1 or $2, because by the time I take my time to invest in sourcing that collection, whether or not it comes to me or not, I have to load it, I have to store it, I have to sort it, I have to price it, I have to grade it, I have to clean it. Then I have to actually go through the act of selling it, because I have a way to sell it, because I'm a retailer. All of that work goes into the price that a record store pays. So if an album's worth $10, you're going to get $1 or $2 or $3, probably on the high end. That's just the reality of it. And the more you have, the more records you have, the less money you're going to get per record, because all those things I mentioned, they are multiplied. If you have 1,000 records or 10,000 records, you're not going to get $1 or $2 or $3 per record. You're going to get less than that, because the amount of time it takes an individual store or an owner to go through, move and transport and store all those records and deal with them over the course of many, many months, that's all got to be built into that buy price. And that's why record stores have to buy wholesale for, in some cases, pennies on the dollar, but it depends on what it is. If you've got really collectible records, of course, someone will pay you more for those. I will absolutely, I tell people money all the time, I will pay good money for good records. If you've got records that are worth $40, $50, $60 each, I have no problem paying you a good amount for those records. Again, depends on how many of them there are. If there's 1,000 of them, well, I don't know if I could even afford it, but you know, there's a couple hundred records and they're all collectible titles and they're all in amazing condition, I'll absolutely pay a premium for those. But that is the anomaly. Like in most cases, you're talking about regular records that were collected from the, you know, most of the time from the 60s, mid 60s through the late 80s. Like that's the vast majority of every collection that you see these days. You know, again, 9 out of 10 at least, or maybe even 99 out of 100. And then it comes down to what's the condition, you know, and then that's when you get into the real intricacies of it, trying to figure out not only what's there, but what the condition is, because that's going to dictate a lot in regards to how much work the store has to do from cleaning them up, and obviously what retail price they can end up putting on them. So there you go. That's my discussion on this topic in regards to why anyone would ever sell to a record store. It seems like a quite obvious thing to me, but I can tell you there's a lot of people out there, collectors involved, who are like, don't ever sell to a record store. They'll rip you off. Well, again, time versus money. So you decide which is more important to you if you've got records to sell. My name is G.I. Sanders. This has been Talking About Records. I really appreciate your time. We will see you again next time.